Hey everybody, welcome to the first episode of Say What Again Billy podcast Side Talk. We are doing our main episodes bi-weekly now, and I want to give everyone more paranormal content on the off week. But because we have a new member to the podcast who happens to be a psychic medium, I like everyone to be introduced to our newest member, Tori. Tori, welcome to the crew officially.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So I wanted to introduce you. We have Joanne. She's our psychic medium. She's like the Jedi master of psychics. That's what I like to call her. We've done some work with Danielle Taverna, who will be visiting in the future and future endeavors, especially in New Jersey, because that's where she's based out of. And you contacted me and talked to me on the side about some interesting things. So I would like to start off with, how did you get into the paranormal? Let's not talk about the powers or abilities yet. Let's talk about your interest in the paranormal first.
I was a preteen and my dad got me into ghost adventures, and it was just kind of a thing we watched together and did together. And that's just really how it started until all of a sudden abilities and weird things started happening.
So these weird things that started happening, what was the first set of weird things? Because usually what happens is one weird thing happens and then it just gets crazier and bigger. So what was the first couple of things that you remember?
I don't remember the age gap that I was at the time. I was probably between 10 or 12 years old. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night, 2, 3 a.m., being really concerned and paranoid about a fire alarm going up somewhere. And for whatever reason, that was really, really important. And sure as, heck, I wake up the next morning to our fire alarm going off. So that was just a weird feeling, inkling that started. And then straight after that, my grandfather died. And that's kind of when more abilities started popping up and sensing things popped up.
So with the passing of your grandfather, do you think that it had something to do with the passing of a family member that kicked your abilities off? Or did it have something to do possibly with your grandfather crossing over?
I think because it was a tragic death, so he died in the house that we still own. I think because it was tragic and it was sudden, he died of a massive heart attack.
Right.
I don't think he understood what was happening or what was going on or where he was. And so visiting the house, I do believe that when tragic things happen, there's kind of an imprint on that ground. But also, I think spirits tend to stay for a period of time as they get their bearings, whether they're in limbo or whatever they're doing. I've noticed for, anywhere between 3 days for like a few months, there's usually activity straight after they die. So I think it was just because it was a tragic death. For whatever reason, I'm more prone or sensitive than, everyone else, even though we all have the abilities to be open. And it just kind of set things off for whatever reason.
I'm going to go back to what you just said, that everybody has the abilities, because I had reached out to Joanne because I've had something going on this past week that is pretty crappy. And I asked her about something that took place last Monday, and it got me kind of worried, and I reached out to her, and we're going to go backtrack to that. I'll touch on it vaguely. But so your grandfather passes away, and that's when everything sparks up. Now, my question to you is, what is sparking? What are the abilities that you are now getting when it started with that unfortunate event?
It probably started with just being able to go into a place and sensing that I was being watched or that there was someone or something there that I couldn't see. I would pick up just on like properties or places in general that were just kind of off. They didn't feel right. And then it was later on that voices and shadow apparitions started happening.
Shadow apparitions or shadow people? Because we got two different things. And
probably both. I've seen solid black figures and I've seen apparitions. So it depends on I'm just going to say the spirit, because one was malevolent and then others have not been. So it ranges.
Okay, so you have some spirits that you feel are nefarious, and then some of them are just kind of like chill.
I tend to pick up on the more not kind individuals. So
So that's crazy because some psychics tend to be a magnet towards certain types of energy. So Joanne, when we're trying to establish a date, by the way, so that we can get you in
Mhm.
studio, so you guys can do the vibing, and then she can
Yeah.
kind of guide you into on how to really, I guess, really use your abilities. Because from what I gather, there's something that you haven't really mastered yet, right?
Not at all. I don't practice at all because too many too many creepy things have happened and I don't know what I'm messing with.
Well,
So,
that's why I reached out to her. She's very intrigued by you, and she's all on board about establishing a date and having you come on. That's gonna be a great episode. You two guys here. I think that's why I feel you guys both have to be in the studio to vibe each other
yeah.
out because she can do things over the phone, but there's more things you can like explain to her. And when you're person to person, it's a lot different. When she first gave me a psychic reading, being in front of her was probably different than being on the phone. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it'd be an interesting talk, and she can guide you, in the right direction. So, but as far as like the nefarious spirits that you tend to attract, which is unfortunate because that kind of sucks because it tends to be in some
Yeah.
scary situations. What are the scarier things that happened with these more nefarious apparitions?
So, funny enough, it was around when I was 16, my brother, who unfortunately passed away from suicide, that's when things ramped up a lot. And I noticed a lot of darker things happening. I had a attachment that lived in my closet and would come out at night and just stare at me at the head of my bed. And
Mm.
it was that feeling of wouldn't do anything else but stare at me. I couldn't see it, but you knew it was there. It wanted to make sure you knew it was there. It was making you uncomfortable on purpose, and it got like joy out of that. So that was probably the scariest one. I had to be cleansed for that one. The other things, I mean, growing up, I had, bunk beds at one time. I had friends who would sleep over. My bunk beds would violently shake back and forth in the middle of the night. You would see like shadow people walking past my doorway if I had my door open, or in my parents' bedroom down this really long hallway. You would see shadow people. You would also hear like a series of knocking a lot of the time, and then I would wake up with like random bruises or random scratches that kind of had no explanation to where they came from or when it happened. So, and then the audible noises was kind of the scarier thing for me because hearing your name being whispered but not being able to tell who is calling your name and not hearing that before was really, really uncomfortable for me.
Sounds very similar to things I've heard from other people in regards to this, and especially Joanne. She's told very crazy stories about her name being called, and the name would sound like her son's saying her name, and
Oh,
this,
interesting.
yeah, mimics. They're called mimics, or just evil spirits, just calling the name, disguising their voice. Saying mom or Tori or Billy, and you be like, I recognize that voice, but you don't recognize these voices.
No, I also get a lot of ear ringing. So my ear ringing when we were actually starting this, my right ear was ringing, which tends to be just a better indication I've noticed of positive things when something is trying to speak to me or get a hold of me. And then my left ear has always been like a negative warning of some kind. But again, I don't tap into those things. I kind of just ignore it because I don't know what I'm dealing with. So
The ear ringing is something that our other psychic friend Danielle Taverna has mentioned. She gets a
yeah.
ringing, I believe she said. The scratches. I wanted to
Mm.
ask you, do you recall the number of lines that appeared on your body?
They weren't in threes. It was usually just two or it was usually one.
So you know your
And
ghost
then,
stuff. You knew I was going to ask that in threes.
yeah,
That's good.
yeah. Knockings have always been in threes,
Okay.
but I mean, I feel like that's always kind of common with the knocking series. But again, in this specific house, which I briefly told you about that I previously lived in, for the past 6 years, did a lot of tormenting and a lot of things when I was home alone specifically. So it's not that odd when things were in threes. So
Interesting. Do you pick up on So you said sounds. You've been physically
Mhm.
touched, right? Anything with
I've only been touched once,
okay. Well, the
and it
scratches.
was on. Well, those I didn't feel, so that's the weird thing. I would wake up with them randomly. I never felt them. I would wake up and feel like a burning or whatever. So yes, but they were always like I went to bed normal and then I woke up and there were weird things.
Right.
So
So let's count those. Let's just say they count for touching, even though you didn't feel them.
yeah.
Do you ever pick up on smells?
Yeah, I do. Occasionally. Not usually like perfume smells or like cigarette smells I have occasionally picked up on. Only at like grave sites. But other than that, I don't really do a lot of the smell portion. I don't usually get a lot of that.
Yeah, it's very something like the. I've been to a location where I actually started smelling. I'm not psychic, but psychics can tend to pick up on more. Where I smelled the smell of dead bodies that were once housed there in a house that was in a historical Civil War area. And psychics tend to sometimes pick up on smells. Even paranormal investigators. That's the one thing that we pick up on is there'll be like a random smell: cigar smoke, cigarette smoke, perfumes that are kind of ancient, like an old lady smell. Like what you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
But
Yep.
psychics do tend to pick up on smells as well, like all around. Now, my question to you is the abilities that you have. You kind of just toning them out. It kind of scares you in a sense. Now,
Yeah.
if you come and meet with Joanne on that tentative date, what would be what you ask from her? Because she's going to watch this. Do you want to know how to turn it off? Do you want to know how to better use them?
I think it's a big part of who I am and why I'm so empathetic as a person. So I would love to be able to use it and not be so fearful. But I need ways of protecting myself, especially because I tend to find lower frequency spirits that tend to be nefarious. Um, but I'm not opposed to guidance. I definitely want guidance and advice and how to navigate it. I don't want to be scared anymore, and that's a big reason why.
Well, you're officially like our second psychic in the group, hence the title of the episode. So we kind of need you to, you know, get these in check because you are one of our paranormal investigators now. So now we have four field investigators: Jeremy, Jason, Bobby, and you. And we
Mm-mm.
need it's a good thing to our repertoire, right? We have guys that use the
Absolutely.
cameras, guys that use the meters. You got the voice and the face, and you got the people that have the abilities, and that would be you and Joanne. And let's just say we
Yeah.
go to a big place and we all go 6, 8 people in this crew. Joey, our
Yeah.
co-host, is petrified, so sometimes he finds excuses to get out of it. He was supposed to sit on the bronze lady statue, and I ended up doing it. So, and then I got bad. Then I ended up doing. I did get bad luck eventually, months later. But
Mm.
long story short, if I would put you in one group and I have Joanne in another group, it's good
Yeah.
because you divide and conquer at some of these locations. And what I've learned from having psychics come on investigations, which just happened fairly recently. We took Joanne on her
Mm.
first investigation. She's never done it before. She's strictly a psychic medium.
Really?
She came to Brewster, New York with us, and then she actually took part in the second investigation via FaceTime. Is some of the things she picked up on were very intriguing because after everything was said and done, we were able to be
Mm.
like, how did she know that based on what the owner of the house said at that particular case? Like something that she picked up on right at the beginning. And then later on in the investigation, the owner divulged some information to us. And she had kind of
Wow.
she already had kind of picked up on it literally within being in the house 20 minutes. So she had picked up on it. And that's why I never really agreed with psychics. I kind of wrote them off, kind of was a non believer. Very early in the season of the podcast,
Yeah.
I kind of, shit on psychics a little bit. I even told Joanne that I was kind of like, on the fence. She kind of turned me on to like, okay, you guys are the real deal. And even when I went to Jersey to talk to Danielle Taverna, Bobby, who was doing the camera work that day,
Yeah.
she randomly said something to him. And then when we got home, after we got back, he called me and told me some crazy stuff that there's no way she should have known. And
Yeah.
that's why you guys are very important. And that's why I feel it's pretty important for you to kind of talk to someone who's been doing this for a long time to kind of master your abilities, because not only for you, but for your well-being, but it could help us as well. You have two people. First of all, it's your
Yeah,
well-being. You want to get that nasty vibes. You don't want to be sitting home and
absolutely.
you know what I mean, going out for dinner, being anywhere and just getting it. You want to learn how to turn it on and off. And then we want to take that ability that you have, being that you're part of the crazy crew now, and
Yeah.
use that for our advantage.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not as well versed as she is, so that's where my interest comes from. I want to see what she's capable of and what she picks up on and how she does it. Mine is definitely, I'll show up to a place and like I can tell you where the energy is. I can tell you what I feel, but it's definitely, I don't think I've predicted, aside from having visions, I don't think I've predicted things like on people. So
What do you
that
mean?
will be interesting.
What do you mean? Like predicted? Like kind of like future s things, or just give them some type of like, oh, your dad's watching you or something like that.
Both, both. Yeah.
Okay. Now, just curious, when it comes to the field of the paranormal, if you could pick one place that you are dying to go to, rhetorically speaking, what would it be?
Vertically. I think just because as a good pedestrian staying on the path when I do go, I have a lot of history with Letchworth Village. So I would like to be able to dig deeper there and go back and see why I'm so affected every single time. So, and why I'm so manipulated too.
Well, we were at Letchworth. Nick is our other co-host. And believe it or not, not a lot of strange things happened to us on the property. And we went into, well,
Really?
we went we went into the buildings that were open, so people don't think I broke the law. We went into the buildings that were yeah, we went into buildings that were open. Walked around them. We were there fairly early. It was still dark walking the property, and not one building gave us any type of spooky vibe, not anything crazy on the property. And we walked in a complete circle around the property there. And the only thing that really happened was when we got to the cemetery. So the only thing I could say to why you may have some type of attachment to that place is some people believe in reincarnation. Some people believe that you're psychic, so you may have a spirit or multiple spirits drawing you there to try to figure something out, because a lot of things happen there. Not things that are just that we know are documented. We had met with someone after we were done investigating. We met with someone that used to work there, and
Yep.
we talked to him, and he told us some stories that only he would know, or workers that worked there would know, and they weren't good stories.
Yeah.
So something might be telling you come back and find something out.
Every time that hospital building, I don't like. There's something bad in there. It wants me in there. I don't want to be in there. Not alone. But I've seen objects fly through the windows after I made a comment of if I see something move, I'm out of here. I get insane headaches afterwards from like the temple of my head, like down to my jaw. It's weird. And then one time I got really agitated. I was not myself. Who I was with told me, all right, it's time to go. And I got very upset, very pissed off. I did not want to leave the property. I couldn't understand why we were leaving. And then taking me off grounds, I almost passed out. It was like I was walking through molasses and people behind me were like pulling me as I'm trying to go forward. It was almost like I couldn't walk. I was basically being carried off the property, and then slept for a good like 5 hours to recharge after I got back home. So something's there. Something wants me there.
So it sounds like we have to pre-plan a trip to go back and do a part two, which I actually do want to go back. There was it's not, to me, I didn't get any scary. I don't really get scared that easily. It wasn't scary. It was very ominous, very,
It's very sad. It's heavy there.
it was a very beautiful day we went. It was chilly in August. It was like 50 degrees, and I had a short sleeve shirt on, and like my co-host Nick we were both freezing, and
Yeah.
it's eerily beautiful, if that makes sense.
It is. Nature's reclaiming itself there. So
Yeah,
it does give that.
that too, and that also helps paranormal activity. Nature, what we believe as investigators or nut jobs, we like to say that the the water, the minerals, and everything, and there is a lot of nature there. It's in upstate, play a factor in that. And what you said about the hospital is on the show that you said your father put you onto with Ghost Adventures with Zach Baggins. They were there, and there's reports of this black shadow tall man that goes there and chases people. We didn't go to that hospital. That building's in bad shape. I'm pretty sure that's the building. We almost did when we first got there, but we chose not to because we just got there. And I said to my co-host, I said, Nick, if we go into this building, we just got here and get caught, that kills our whole investigation. Another reason I want to go back is the audio came out kind of bad, and now I know what I did wrong, so I'd like to reshoot. But I would definitely go back to the cemetery, which is really, to me, that was the part that was spooky and sad, because we were getting results on a spirit box through the app. People tend to knock the app because it's a phone app, but these hits that we got kind of correlated to the monument with over 600, 700 names on it. And we did find those names that popped, and that's not really a coincidence. We actually ran the odds through ChatGPT, and the odds of those three names popping at that exact time that we were there to look at the memorial was like 0.03. That's like
insane.
Yeah, that big. So Letchworth, out of all the places, Letchworth is the place you'd want to go back to.
It's really one of the only places, at least in New York, that I've been to. Back home in Massachusetts, where I grew up, I've been to a few like Civil War like cemeteries and things like that. I've done occasional, paranormal investigating when I've been asked to. I tend not to continue going on those places because dark things tend to happen afterwards, and then the team members are inexperienced and they're not too thrilled. Like whenever we use the spirit box, which is my favorite piece of gear. I love the spirit box. I always get told to be careful and malevolent or malicious whenever I'm talking, whenever I'm trying to communicate, whenever I'm trying to talk. I always get told, be careful, behind you, malevolent, malicious. So it gets discouraging without people that are seasoned.
Well, you're in for a treat with us because we've been, in this past year, we did a lot. We did a lot of videos. I have stuff lined out. I sent you some information on the places that we have lined up. Rolling Hill Sanatorium, Oakland Cemetery, Untermeyer Park, Yonkers, New York, places that are close to New York. One of the places is a little trip. It's like 5 hours, and it's going to be something that we pre-book. It's actually something that's a little bit more doable than one of the other locations. It's just a hell of a drive. So I'm trying to plan a big crew for that place, because that place you can actually sleep at. Didn't realize that. You can actually go there, sleep there the night, and leave the next day if you could sleep after you're done investigating. They kind of made it into an Airbnb. That place I won't say on here. A lot of YouTubers did go there and stay. But I kind of want that to be a surprise for the fans. But that one is actually more doable. It's just the drive is a little tedious. But if we go in a crew, 2 cars on the way up there, and we split the fee because they kind of make you pay for these places now. You can't just walk in and do an investigation. Everything's a catch. They make you pay. But there's a lot of stuff that we have lined up for this year. And it's going to be a pleasure having you come with us and see how Joanne can guide you in the right direction. And also what you can do with the equipment that we provide for you. I would say in our group, we do have some experienced people. Nick, my co-host, used to be in my paranormal group when we grew up. He knows what he's doing with that equipment. He's got his wits and smarts about him. Joey, he's a skeptic. We always need a skeptic in the group to try to,
absolutely
make sure we're not jumping the gun. You and Joanne will be the X-Men with your abilities. And then I have my other crew members, Bobby, Jeremy, and Jason. Jason and Jeremy, they're good with the cameras, and Bobby, he wants to get his hands dirty with the stuff. So we got ourselves a nice crew for this year, very early, 2025, only the 27th of January. We got a good year to look forward to, and we are very happy that you're on board. So welcome aboard to the Say What Again, Billy podcast. And that's why I wanted to have you come on the first pilot episode of Side Talk, so that everyone gets to know you right off the bat, because they're going to be seeing you on YouTube and hearing you on the podcast in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And this was made possible by Spotify for Creators. If you don't have Spotify for Creators and you want to create your own podcast, go download it on your phone, tablet, or computer, and it gives you all the tools and tricks you need to start your very own podcast. Tori, thank you so much. Welcome aboard the Say What Again, Billy podcast. All righty. Have a good night.
Yeah, thanks, Billy.
Of course. And everybody, this has been another episode of the Say What Again, Billy podcast, Side Talk. Good night.